Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Megan. So I've just got one slide reel here quick before I hand it off again, but just a little overview of our general regulation setting process that we do every year for you guys so you're aware. We've kind of finalized our interagency proposals at this point, and now we're here in July, hold these public meetings to kind of keep everybody updated on what we're planning and give you guys an opportunity for some feedback. So keep in mind as we're going through this that these proposals are not adopted yet until our commission meets in September. This year will be on September 12th, and they will be in Ontario. And it's at that point that they'll take any feedback that you guys have given, take our staff proposals, and they will make them into rule for next year. So any comments you guys have on any of the regulations, proposed regulations that we're going to present tonight, you can go ahead and submit them through our website there, that link located there. And then if you're really passionate about something and want to do some in-person or virtual testimony like we're doing tonight, you can go to our webpage, the ODFW Commission webpage, and sign up to testify in person at that October 12th meeting about one of the proposals or multiple, whether you're for or against them. Just make sure you do that 48 hours ahead of the meeting there. So, and then last thing, just once that's adopted by the commission on September 12th, we kind of do a proof of the reg book, and those are then printed and should be available for people to pick up in stores December of 2025. And with that, I will turn it over.
Sorry about that. Good start. So here's our proposed season dates. Back in 2020, our hunt season framework was modified, so everything is based off the buck deer any legal weapon season opening on the first Saturday in October. And as we see this calendar shift, 2 years ago, I believe was when the latest that season would start, and now we're starting to see it inch earlier in the year. So we're going to see a 1-day shift earlier for 2026. So these are our proposed season dates for all the general seasons. On Colton. And so we are going to cover this year. We are proposing some changes to regulation, specifically around technology. And then we're also looking for some input from the public about some potential rules regarding wildlife crossings. And we'll cover those next. So on page 19 of the current regulation book for this year in 2025, you can find this under prohibited methods when we discuss technology such as using artificial lights, lasers, hunting with electronic devices attached to the scopes, or infrared thermal. It's kind of all lumped together in one large paragraph. And what we're looking to do with this proposed regulation change is clarify that language and make it easier to understand for everyone. So we're going to take that one large paragraph and break it out into 3 different sections. The first one is, discussing, it's unlawful to use artificial light with exceptions. The exceptions being for raccoon and bobcats when it's not cast from a vehicle. So we're breaking that piece out on its own to make it a little easier to understand. Then there will be a second point there where we are breaking out language to say that it's unlawful to use an electronic device attached to or incorporate into the firearm or scope, except for cameras and scopes containing lighted reticles. Primarily what this is looking at is scopes that receive data from different electronic devices. And then the third part of this is going to be, we already have that it's unlawful to hunt with infrared, and there's some confusion about the language and whether thermals, night vision, infrared, what those exact definitions are. So we are including thermal now in that rule as well. just to really spell out that it is unlawful to use any of those types of or those pieces of equipment to hunt wildlife. And so, like I said, this is all going to be regulations that we are proposing to commission this year. And as I said, what we're really looking to do is most of this is already in regulation now on page 19 under prohibited methods. And we're really looking to just break that out, make it easier to understand, and make it, like I said, make it easier to understand and really clarify that language. And then the other thing, so what we're looking for, this is something we're looking for feedback from the public on, especially if wildlife crossing is becoming more important to our management and the push to have more of them. Some groups are looking to proactively create a rule that says you cannot hunt within a certain distance of a designated wildlife crossing. So that would mean an actual designated like ODOT crossing, for example, not just necessarily a spot where wildlife would cross a road. We haven't had, as I said, any issues so far, but there's some requesters who see value in proactively establishing a restriction like this. So we're looking for feedback from the public on a rule such as this. And there is some already in our fur bearer regulations, we do have restrictions around trapping within 500 feet of the mouth of an ODOT wildlife crossing. So it'd be something somewhat similar to that. So if you guys or gals are interested in providing comment on any of these regulation changes or potential regulation changes, we recommend towards the end of this meeting, you can chime in or provide your direct comment to the commission during the meeting.
Sweet. Thank you, Skylar. All right, we're going into the tag summaries. So the 2026 draft proposals for by species. So the mule deer management plan was approved by the commission in June of 2024. The new plan contains a lot of Oregon-specific data that will help ODFW implement scientific-based management for mule deer in the state. So starting 2026, if you look at this hunt map, this will be the new hunt areas that Oregon will be utilizing. So when you look at this map, you can see the different colors indicate a different herd range. So like if you looked at like this top right corner, the green corner, that green indicates herd range, and then those are different hunt areas inside the herd range. We had over 20 years, there's over 1,000 collars distributed over the landscape to get these wildlife or the herd ranges. And so shifting to this is going to allow us to better manage the mule deer populations over there. I'll show you for this next slide. So here's just an example of, so the herd range will be NE, so it's northeast is the herd range. So that'll be the first number, and then 1 indicates the series. So since it's a deer, an antlered deer hunt, it's 1. The next 2 numbers indicate herd unit or the herd area, so the hunt area inside the herd range. So like for the northeast corner, there's 6 different hunt areas for that that herd range. And then whenever it goes, the -1 just indicates like if there's a second season. So like the Heppner has a late rifle season, so that would be the -1 at the end. And then for like muzzleloader and rifle, there'll be an extra, same thing like R or an M or a T for the youth. That'll be thrown on there after the DHA unit. So it'll be like any 101R would be this long hunt area would be the archery season for that unit. And then I got a hunt just we have a hunt area or hunt map here that I'll show to you guys. So this, you can find the link on our website here. So this is an interactive map. So it gives you all the different names for the new herd ranges and then how they're broken up into hunt areas. So like for instance, this one, DE indicates Deschutes. So there's only one hunt area for that Deschutes herd range. So if you wanted to zoom in more on this, so once you get closer, indicates the old hunt areas. So like if we're looking at like this one right here, this white used to be the Heppner. It's now split up. Heppner's not a hunt unit for deer anymore. So it's split into these. So if you were over in Heppner and you normally hunt on like that south side in the national forest, and you want for trying to figure out what hunt to apply for, it'd be Fox is the herd range, and then it's 03 would put you right there in the south part of Heppner. So this kind of will allow you to orient yourself with where you historically hunt from the old hunt areas or the units to the new hunt areas. So it's a relatively pretty cool map resource for you guys to use. Let's back up. And so with that, the change in those hunt units, so we went from 67 units to 63, which is just basically all the east side units changed, which there's 47 on that side. So lost 4, so shrank in deer hunt areas. So they're larger. There's 43 of them. That's actually going to bring the premium down. So there used to be 67 premium hunts in the state of Oregon. Now there's going to be 63. Everything on the west side stays the same, but it's that the east side, the premium hunts will now match their new herd range and hunt unit within that range. Hopefully you guys have seen, heard of this. You're not just now picking this up that this is happening. We did a bunch in 2024 when it got approved. A couple different outreaches, the webpage launch, which has that interactive map on there. That came March, so that's a recent thing that you can use to inform your next hunt season. And Margus.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go into some general statewide proposals here for deer and elk. We'll start with deer here. So overall, with these changes to mule deer, we are going to see a 10% reduction in tag numbers across the state. None of that's really in Western Oregon, as most of Western Oregon is general currently. But Eastern Oregon, as Colton mentioned, we're aligning with those herd ranges, and the tag reductions is just to kind of even out some of those boundary changes, as well as some biological needs. Some of those new herd ranges aren't doing as well as others, so we're starting low right now, 10% decrease. Hopefully that gets us where we need to go, and then we'll adjust as needed in years to come once we kind of figure out this new how this new herd range system is going to work and the benefits of it that come along with it. So there will be a slight increase in whitetail deer tags. And then for 600 series, there's again another slight decrease in tag numbers, just a 3%. That's across a few hunts up in the northwest and west side here. However, down in the Applegate here, out of Medford, we will be increasing some tags in the Applegate. Applegate numbers are really strong for deer, and that unit can take it. So we might as well provide a little bit of opportunity there. There's also going to be some additional whitetail deer tags in various areas in Northeast available as well. So we go to elk. So elk. Proposed a 2% tag decrease. A lot of that's up in the northwest and northeast areas. 2%, that's not, it is a decrease, but it's not that bad overall when you look at statewide numbers. We will be deleting some hunts this year. In the West Cascades, there's 5 we're getting rid of. Those were mainly leftover hunts from they were created to address damage issues, and at this point, those damage issues have kind of subsided. There's been some restructuring with our general antlerless damage tags, and just some shift in herd ranges of elk. So those hunts really aren't serving the purpose that they once did. And then another hunt being deleted, North Wagon Tire. A little bit of increased archery tag opportunity in the Central Oregon area. And then we will be splitting 3 hunts into separate hunts. That's the Applegate Evans Creek, which I will talk about in more detail later. And then the Umatilla Youth will be split into 2 hunts as well.
So back in 2022, there was a big shift in archery elk in Eastern Oregon. There's a large portion of northeastern Oregon that was a general season, similar to Western Oregon, over-the-counter tags, and you can move from unit to unit. There's a large change where a lot of those units switched to controlled hunt. Now that we're at the 3-year mark, whenever we do a lot of these large changes, we do a 3-year review. What we're seeing from that, like I said, 16 new controlled elk archery hunts were established in northeastern Oregon. We have seen quite a few leftover tags. 4 of the 16 hunts had leftover tags available after the draw. And all 14 WMUs affected by the change from general to controlled archery season experienced a reduction in total hunters during archery season. And that was a lot of the intent behind this was to reduce crowding by hunters, and also to be able to also so that way the district biologists over on the east side there could have more control over harvest that was occurring in those units. So that way it wasn't just an open general season. So we have seen a reduction in the total number of hunters and total days hunted in each of the WMUs, which was to be expected. And like I said, one of the interesting things that came out of it is some of the hunts have had a lot of leftover tags available as well. And if you would like to go in more depth with that, I would recommend reaching out to the biologist there on the east side. And then so for pronghorn and bighorn, we're proposing 1% tag increase. Looks like increased tags in the Balula and Malheur River units. Bighorn, there's a 1% tag decrease, and there will not be a Wenaha hunt this year because that hunt's on a 3-year rotation between CTUIR and Washington.
So for the mountain goat proposals, bear proposals, so there's a proposed to decrease tags by 10%. And those are basically just coming from you're losing 1 tag from the the Central Cascade hunt, and then 1 tag from the Strawberry Mountain hunt, and that's because it's on a 2-year rotation with the tribes over there. So that's the decrease for them. And bear proposals got a 1% increase, which the 1 hunt that got increased was the South Central and the Mount Emily Walla Walla, or the 2 hunts there. Increased bear tags for those spring bear tags. Here's a breakdown to the table of what you're actually seeing happen here. So 8% proposed decrease for deer, 2% decrease for elk. Pronghorn had 1% increase, bighorn sheep 1% decrease, and mountain goats 10%, bears 1% increase. So basically what you're seeing there for the bears is that 100% or 100 tags allocated to that northeast corner spring bear hunt.
Okay, just a few general updates and reminders before we conclude the kind of statewide portion here. Oh, good, cool. So, first is kind of the hot topic of really the Western U.S. right now, CWD. ODFW has been working pretty hard to collect CWD samples the past couple of years. We really ramped up our efforts in beginning of fall of 2024 through now. We had some funding for specific CWD biologists that were basically dedicated for sampling as many animals as they get their hands on. And we're trying to continue that trend. Oregon does not have CWD at the moment. However, we are surrounded in every state by CWD positive animals. So, unfortunately, it's probably just a matter of time before we do detect it in Oregon. And early detection is going to be key in trying to contain that that outbreak and kind of minimize cost and minimize damage to our ungulate herds. So we do have a few different options for getting your animals tested this year during hunting season. We would ask that as many of you as possible try to get a test done on it. It'll really help us out. So of course we have our general check stations. The two main ones are in Eastern Oregon near Prineville and then up in Biggs. And then there's some smaller ones that might pop up. We'll advertise those as the season gets closer, more district level check stations. You can always swing by one of our district offices. I'll show a map of that in a few minutes here. Come in. Most offices are open 8 to 5. You're welcome to swing in and get that tested. And we've also started incorporating a lot of our meat processors and taxidermists around the state. They're incentivized to take samples for us. So check with them. When you go in and you drop your meat off at a butcher, ask them if they're a cooperator with us and would be willing to take a sample. Same with a taxidermist. You might just be able to get your samples taken there. And then, of course, learn more, just go to our website. If you just Google ODFW CWD, our webpage will come up with a bunch of information as well as a list of cooperating meat processors and taxidermists. So, next slide. And just a quick shout out to ODFW's anti-poaching campaign. Poaching continues to be a problem throughout the state, as well as the whole Western U.S. here. So we're limited in numbers. Oregon State Police is limited in numbers. So we really rely on you guys to give us tips and kind of be a second set of eyes. So if you guys are out there, you see something, go ahead and let us know, let OSP know, and that way we can really try to crack down on this. And of course, here you can scan the QR code or go to that website for more info as well. Next slide. Yeah, so we can open it up to some questions briefly here about some general topics, and then once we're done with that, we'll jump right into our more local district updates for the Southwest districts here. I will add before we get into questions here that we're all pretty site specific with what we do, especially down here in Southwest Oregon. We know the general stuff like we presented on for the mule deer changes, but if you have specific questions about a unit or road, like where that's going to fall or stuff like that, I would definitely encourage you to do one of two things. You could either attend one of these meetings for one of the East Side districts where you hunt. If you already missed that, you could go to our website and find the recording of it, listen in. Or Colton just brought up a map here. Feel free to call one of your offices out there in the East. If you hunt up by Enterprise, call that Enterprise office because they're going to have the best info for that area. So just keep that in mind. But with that, we'll take any questions real quick on the general topics, and then we'll jump into district updates. So you guys can either put them in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can call on you. Either way.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions here from Jim Muck. The first one goes back to Colton's slide on how Eastern Oregon hunts are named. So will we be using any common names instead of NE01, etc.?
Yeah, so for that example, that is the Northeast. It's called Northeast. That's a unit name. So like the unit, it's a herd range, and then the hunt areas are inside. So like what you would reference historically as a unit would be actually a new hunt area. So all of the herd ranges all have their own unique name. So Mid Columbia is this guy over here. So you have two hunt units, hunt areas for Mid Columbia. And then you got like Jackknife, Helix, North Blues. So these give you the list of all the names here: Murtis Creek, Aldridge, Juntura, and that these will correlate to these. Also, if you zoom in a little closer, or maybe if you click on it, or I guess these just correlate to what's on the side here.
Okay, Colton, could you put a link to that in the chat?
Yeah.
To the map. The other question is, what parts of the animal are used to sample chronic wasting disease?
Yeah, so for chronic wasting disease, the best samples are the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. There's 2 lymph nodes. Basically, they're right at the jawline of your deer and elk, kind of right by the base of the jaw, base of the skull, kind of under the tongue there. So that's what we need. So generally, if you just bring the head down to our office, as long as you didn't cut too far back in there when you're taking the head off, we should be able to get samples from that. And then for elk, we also prefer to get both those and a piece of the brain stem. So again, really all we need is the head. We should be able to get everything we need from that.
And I just put, Colton put the map link in, and I just put a chronic wasting disease page link in the chat. So does anyone else have any questions on the statewide proposals? I think we've got one possibly coming here in the chat. So Ashley is asking if there have been any changes with white-tailed deer. Ashley, could you just confirm, are you talking about the Douglas County population? Okay, so Colton, it's the North Bank Habitat area.
Yeah, so there has been not this year, but last year for Columbian white-tailed deer. Basically, the only changes with those were the North Bank hunts specific got broadened to the Melrose unit as well. So it's the entire Melrose unit. So there's the archery tag, and the rifle tag. I believe also the muzzleloader tag is now, historically it's just been a North Bank tag that you apply for. Now it's still the same tag, but when the hunt boundaries change to include North Bank and the Melrose unit. So that would just gives people a little more flexibility and not necessarily stuck at North Bank. If they had private property across the street, they could hunt North Bank and then also their private property with that tag.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. I think another thing, if you wouldn't mind, Colton, is putting the map, the biologist map contact list in the chat.
I don't know if I have that.
Okay, if not,
I could
I'll
drop
put
that
it
in if while we go on to district updates. I'll put that in.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we'll move on to districts. I don't see any other Oh, wait, no, I saw one, my bad. Wheeler is asking, why does the Northeast herd range have whitetail and mule deer separate hunts? I'm not sure who of you wants to answer that. Or we can defer to Northeast Oregon biologists.
I
I
would
would-
probably say to call the if you're looking at a specific hunt, call the district that's in charge of that hunt is what I would recommend.
Yeah. If it's well, it might be easier. Yeah, they probably have better insight there.
It
But
could be
there's-
for a number of reasons, whether it's
I
damage,
know
whether
they have specifics, like for instance, if you refer the new whitetail hunts that are over there in the northeast corner, there's a targeting that there's like a big valley over there that has a whole bunch of whitetail, and so they gave it just to an extra tag out there for muzzle loaders, and that's just to increase opportunity and also to kind of put a cap on those whitetail tags because there's not a whole lot of whitetail in that valley. We're actually getting harvested, so that was a little insight on why those hunts were created. It also gives a great opportunity to sample for CWD, which there seemed like a pretty susceptible population being in the northeast corner and being whitetail. So
Great, thanks, Colton. Matthew, if you can put a biology contact list, would be great in the chat. And it looks like we're good to go to Southwest updates.
Okay, yeah, updates for Charleston. So this year we flew all 3 of our units for elk. We flew Tioga 6s and Powers. We surveyed a good portion of elk in all 3 units. For the Tioga, we saw an elevated calf ratio, and then our bull ratio was about where we typically see it for a 3-year average. The 6s and the Powers as well. The bull ratio was basically where we see it for the average for multiple years. We did see elevated calf ratios for all 3 units. And that's it. When we see really high elevated calf ratios like that, could be a number of factors. It could be there was a good production year. Could be part of it. Another thing, it is dependent partially on what herds we do see. When flying, it can be very weather dependent. So sometimes we're catching herds that are more likely to be out, so they're more agricultural herds compared to timber herds, and so those ag herds will have more calves typically in them than herds that hang out way up in just timberland. So there could be a couple factors in there. So we definitely did see, and it appears we did see an elevated calf ratio, but with our bull ratios, it seems like they're staying steady based on our 3-year average there. Then moving on to our black-tailed deer surveys. Just so for a reminder, black-tailed deer surveys, these are either nighttime spotlighting surveys or daytime hiking surveys where we're glassing, looking for deer, and we're classifying them. For our herd composition for those, for the Tioga 6s and Powers, again, looking at our bucks per 100 does for the Tioga, slightly elevated, but we're pretty close to that 3-year average. 6s, we're slightly down, but again, we're pretty close to our 3-year. The Powers, we did see a really high buck-doe ratio. I will say, though, it was a pretty small sample size. When we do these surveys, we have a small time window between when hunting seasons end and then when the bucks start dropping their antlers. So we didn't get to do a ton of surveying in the Powers, but we did see quite a few bucks during that survey period. And then our fawn ratios were all really good across the board. Most of them were elevated above the 3-year average. But one thing I would say to keep in mind with these surveys is we're looking at trends over time, looking how those herd compositions ratios change. So when we will get these numbers every now and then where we'll have a really high calf ratio or fawn ratio, or really high, or even a really low one. But we're really looking at is that 3-year average and see how that changes over time. But so everything from our surveys appeared to be pretty good. There wasn't anything to raise alarm bells, anything like that for buck ratios and fawn ratios. And kind of moving on, so a little bit of information for Roosevelt elk. These are from our mandatory reporting data from this last 2024 harvest season. And we can kind of see overall, again, our harvest stayed pretty close to the 3-year average. There's not really anything in there that's jumping out. We did have some issues with our reporting this year where we didn't get very good data for our Tioga unit weight bow or 6's unit muzzleloader, which is why there's some X's in there. And then again, all this, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through all these tables because all this information will be available on the website if anyone really wants to go and dive deep into this stuff. Moving on to blacktails. So blacktail deer for Tioga, 6's and powers. I just included any legal weapon general season on this, just to give a snapshot of what that harvest looks like. Keep in mind now the way our hunting framework works, those seasons are going to get earlier. Typically as that season moves earlier, there's less of the rut included in it. So we expect to see a slight dip in harvest, and that's very normal compared to the way that hunting framework has a later season or a later rut hunt, so to speak. But overall, like I said, the numbers here look pretty good. Everything staying consistent. And then I did throw in our black bear and cougar just to show, what harvest looked like for both those species. Black bear on the left with the fall season, and then the spring season, the breakout for each one of those. We did see a little bit less bear harvested in the 6's. And then cougars for Tioga 6's and powers are pretty low harvest from hunters in general. And then again, I know we kind of breezed through that all pretty quick, but again, all this information is going to be available on the website for anyone to go and check out. And so this year for the Charleston District and the Tioga 6's and powers, we're not proposing any changes to our hunts. The controlled hunts are all staying the same. No changes in the bags for the general seasons either. The only difference you will see in there is, like I said before, the normal calendar shift, which will be one date earlier. So it shouldn't be too much of a big effect on hunting out there. And then as far as district updates, one thing we did want to bring to the forefront and talk about is we had a very dry spring this year. So we do expect to see some high fire risk across Western Oregon. We're already seeing an early fire season, fires popping up in different parts of the state. So please be mindful, check your fire restrictions, be cautious out there. And then it's always a good practice to have, maybe a fire extinguisher, some water, shovels in your truck while you're out there. So if you do accidentally start something or you stumble across it, you can jump on it quick and then report those as soon as you can. So that way we can get resources, or so ODF and the different fire companies can get resources out there. But yeah, so overall, wrap up for the Charleston District. Everything seems to be pretty steady. We're not really proposing any large changes this year. That's all I got for us. Moving on to the Rogue.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go into some stuff down in the Rogue District here. So I'll make this pretty quick. If you guys have any questions, again, all this info should be online, or feel free to use the contacts map I put in the chat here, and you guys can give me a call or one of my coworkers here, and we can dive into the nitty-gritty stuff. But we'll start with deer. So got our 4 units we kind of manage down here in my district. Start with the Chetco So all of these were counts done back in the fall of 2024, basically November 15th through December 15th. So Chetco, we classified 95 deer, came out with a buck to doe ratio of 20 and 70 fawns per 100 does. Both of those numbers pretty good. About on par with our 3-year average. And then we had a 47% hunter success. Evans Creek, 94 deer classified, again, 20 bucks per 100 does and 89 fawns per 100 does. The bucks per 100 does number was about average for the Evans Creek. The fawns were up there a little ways. We saw a little bump in our fawn production, it seemed like last year for the Evans Creek. So that is good. And again, really high hunter success there. Then we'll go down to the Rogue. The Rogue, we spent a lot of time classifying deer. So we had 172 deer classified. Again, 20 bucks per 100 does and 87 fawns per 100 does. Both of those numbers are up from our 3-year average. So that is good. Last year, for whatever reason, our bucks per 100 does in the Rogue wasn't looking too good. That's kind of why we roll on these 3-year averages, is because you get those ups and downs from year to year. That could be anything from weather to survey bias. So glad to see that's up again, and hopefully that trend continues. A little tougher hunting in the Rogue, but still pretty good, 24% success. And then we'll go to the Applegate unit, and the Applegate unit has historically been one of our strongest units for deer down here in the Southwest. We classified 155 deer, 38 bucks per 100 does, which is really good considering our benchmark is 20. And then it is a little less actually than last year, but still great. And then 58 fawns per 100 does, which is still good. 36% hunter success, another great number. And then a lot of those deer in the Applegate tend to be more mature bucks. So I didn't write that down here, but that's usually the way it falls. So Applegate, really strong unit right now. So we go to elk next. So for elk, we're kind of on a every other year rotation down here in the Rogue District. So this year we flew the Evans Creek and Chetco units. I'll start with the Evans Creek. We did our traditional flight in the Evans Creek, classified 169 elk. That was this spring back in February. Came out to 18 bulls per 100 cows and 21 calves per 100 cows. Both are fairly decent numbers for the Evans Creek and pretty on par with averages. And then a hunter success of 5%, which, doesn't sound great, but, for the West Cascades tag, that's pretty normal, or even a little above normal. For anybody that's hunted that, they'll know. And then Chetco, we tried a little bit different survey method in Chetco this year, kind of more of a stratified random sampling, trying to get rid of some of that bias of maybe just counting elk we know are there. So with that, we did count fewer elk than usual, just 35 elk. But with that, our bull to cow ratio came out really good, 41 bulls per 100 cows, and then 18 calves per 100 cows. So we'll try that a few more times and see how that kind of compares to our averages of our previous survey methods. And then I threw the Rogue on here. We did not survey the Rogue this year. That was not in the rotation. But just for everybody's knowledge, last year in spring of 2024, those are the numbers there. We do a lot of flights in the Rogue when we do fly it, so we comp a lot of elk. We had 648 last spring, 17 bulls per 100 cows, 16 calves per 100 cows, and then the 4% success rate, which is, again, pretty on par for the West Cascades general tag here in Southwest Oregon. So last thing here I'll talk about is kind of our district proposals that we're looking to change. The big one is the 228A and 228T hunts. So currently those are antlerless elk hunts, a general and a youth. Those have historically included a hunt boundary of both the entire Applegate unit and the Evans Creek unit. Those two units are managed fairly differently for elk. The Applegate unit is an elk de-emphasis area. We don't really manage it for elk. We focus more on deer. The Evans Creek has a lot of elk, there's a lot of agriculture. We're looking for more of an elk opportunity up there in the BLM and National Forest. So kind of two different management strategies. It didn't really make sense to have one hunt with both of those units in it. So for 2026, we're proposing on splitting those units up, which would generate basically two new hunts for our area. So we'll keep the 228A and 228T. Those will each have 20 tags, and we'll just shrink the boundary to the Applegate unit itself. And then with that, we'll create 229A and 229T, which will just be the Evans Creek unit. So you kind of see the tag numbers there. That is an overall increase in tags. It should provide a little more opportunity for folks. Some folks might not like the idea of having to choose one hunter or the other, but I think overall it's going to be better for our management and then hunter crowding a little bit. So that's kind of what we're doing with that. And then just real briefly, we're adding some tags to the Applegate unit antlerless hunts. Again, like I mentioned in the previous slide, Applegate's doing really well. It has been for years. So we're going to increase the number of tags for the 628 hunt to 45 from 40, and the 628T hunt, the youth hunt. This is a typo in here. It's currently at 30 tags, and we're gonna bump it up to 35 is our proposal. With that, I think we're done with rogue updates for now.
Right, the Douglas District updates here. So for deer population surveys and the Siuslaw, we conducted surveys this year in the Siuslaw that was part of Douglas County District. Comped 120 deer, $20 per 100 does, 32 fawns per 100 does. Pretty good buck ratio, pretty good buck ratio, not the best fawn ratio. The unit-wide general season rifle hunter success was 34%. And you can kind of see here how it's it's steadily increasing for success, hunter success. In the Tioga, we also conducted some random surveys out there. Again, just the part of the Tioga that's in the Douglas District. Comp 65 deer, buck to doe ratio was 30, fawn to doe ratio was 33, so pretty good on the bucks. Not terrible on the fawns, not very good on the fawns. General season rifle was 32%. So you can see, again, with that graph, just the percent success is increasing. You kind of see that spike in 2020 on both of these hunts. That's because I would imagine it's because of the, we had a lot of fires in 2020, potentially more deer habitat, maybe easier to hunt. 2020, we also increased or changed our bag limit to allow for spike harvest. So that's where you see that bump up there. Otherwise, nothing too crazy. Yep, there you go. So for Siuslaw, this is just deer harvest data. So you can just see, just compared hunters and total harvest. So total harvest of deer compared to hunters. So, hunters decreasing in the Siuslaw, increasing, total deer being harvested. Again, same spike. That would be explained in the other percent success in the last slide. General rifle, again, less deer hunters, rifle deer hunters in the Tioga, and relatively stable total harvest there. So we didn't conduct population surveys for the Indigo and Dixon. We're on a three-year rotation between two districts. So we have 7 different districts in our unit. We do the Melrose each year for the whitetail deer and comp blacktail at the same time, and then otherwise we do a rotation. So no info there, but general success. You see kind of the percent success has increased pretty rapidly, 42%. The historic 5-year average for the general season rifle buck in the Indigo is 33, and we are at 42%. So again, you can just see pretty good unit increase in deer. Same thing at Dixon, same issue with the survey, 44%. It's also increasing with percent success. The 5-year average for that is 38. So again, above the 5-year average for last year's harvest. Otherwise, just the total hunters. So that's another thing that's pretty crazy, interesting, whatever adjective you want to throw on there. Just the increase in hunters. You can see that spike again right there, kind of 2020, post 2020. So for both of these units, you see that. Again, fires create a good habitat. These units have a lot. I think the Dixon's like 77% public land. So with more people potentially getting in to hunting after 2020, or even just Weyerhaeuser going to draw. So it's just drawing more people, the Indigo and Dixon unit, and then result harvesting more deer. Otherwise, Powers, Evans Creeks again didn't survey. 41% success, 47% success for Powers. Those historic 5-year average for the Powers is 36, and Evans Creek is 40. So again, last year was a pretty good year on average. Again, comparing, so Powers, decrease in hunters, slightly decrease in total harvest, increase in hunters for Evans Creek, increase in harvest. Powers has recently had some timber companies restrict access, so I think access would be an issue there with hunters and in the Powers unit. Otherwise, for Melrose unit deer population surveys, classified 829 black-tailed deer in the fall, had 16 buck to doe ratio and 52 fawn per doe ratio with a 52% success general season. So again, pretty low on bucks, pretty good on fawns. For Columbia whitetail deer in the Melrose, 260 whitetails in the fall, 36 bucks per 100 does, 51 fawns per 100, and then 73% success for that rifle Columbia whitetail deer tag. Otherwise, so for the Columbia whitetail deer, it was a pretty good year. Didn't count a whole a significantly high number of Columbia whitetail deer, but the 36 bucks per 100 does and 51 fawns per 100 does is record ever recorded for ODFW. So that's kind of cool to see. The Columbia whitetail deer population is doing good in Douglas County. Off to elk. So the South Indigo is what we surveyed. Comps 334 elk in the winter, 13 bulls, 33 calves, 9%. So actually relatively pretty good bull ratio compared to historically. And otherwise 33 calves is also pretty good. For the Dixon unit, we observed below average number of elk with a low bull ratio, but a higher than normal calf ratio. 5% success for a general West Cascade rifle season is also slightly low for the unit as well. For the east part of the tile unit, which is in my district that we surveyed, we observed the most elk in over 2 decades. Our calf ratio was the highest it's been in the past 10 years. But our bull ratio was quite low. First season Tioga was a little bit low, and second season was right on for the 3-year average for their success rate there. Otherwise, thank you for coming and participating. Looks like we might have some questions in the chat. Otherwise, you can raise your hand. I can call, or Megan can call on you to ask a question about the unit or district specific.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. Skylar, I'm going to send this one to you, asking if ODFW performs abundance counts for deer versus the buck-doe ratio counts.
Yeah, so for our deer surveys, the buck-doe ratios we calculate during our survey period is one data point that we use to look at those populations. We also look at the harvest rates as well from the mandatory reporting. And then we've been working with our research division to do some work for population and density, previously doing deer fecal studies, where basically we're using deer poop for mark recapture to help develop some of those density and population numbers for units. And then as well now looking at using cameras to get a better idea of population and density. Overall, it's very difficult to do abundance counts, if you will, in every unit every year because it requires an immense amount of effort. So typically we try to do those more on a rotational period. And then a rotational or every couple years we try to get those numbers. And then the ratios we get for our doe fawn and buck-doe ratios, we can use that to look at a trend over time to help give us an idea as well of what's going on with those populations.
Great, thank you. And hopefully that answered your question, Jim. Ashley is asking, why is the fawn to doe percentage so low in contrast to other areas? And I believe she's referring to Douglas District. What can be done to increase the success of fawns in the Douglas District?
So just with sampling effort. So for instance, I think we comped almost 900 black-tailed deer in the Melrose unit. So that ratio is probably a little more accurate than an abundance of 15, 20, even 100 deer. So that could be just a bias in some of the surveys that we conduct right now. It's kind of why Skylar mentions the emphasis on trying to figure out a better way to sample deer in districts across Western Oregon. Otherwise, just some normal things that you could do, like on your property or in the Douglas District, is I don't know. I'm sure Skylar and Vargas can help me out with this, but there's increasing habitat, having better forage availability on the land. So some of those, like if you can drive on North Bank, we'll talk about that specifically. Like you drive on North Bank and you see the Jackson Ranch right next to North Bank. You see all kinds of deer. Mostly all those deer have fawns with them. You see bucks running around there. You go just 10 feet over to North Bank. You're not seeing as many deer. You're seeing a lot of single does, not seeing a whole lot of bucks. That's just because of how the vegetation out there is managed. The Jackson Ranch does a really good job of creating, they're probably looking more to create better habitat for their cows, more food for their cows, but it's also benefiting the deer. And on North Bank, not a whole lot of habitat restoration enhancement is really being done at the time. So things like that. I don't know if Skylar or Vargas have anything to add.
Yeah, I agree with you, Colin. I mean, nutrition is a big driver for our fawns. Just does that are in better condition, they're healthier, they're more likely to have healthier fawns that are more likely to survive. It's a pretty good rule of thumb to follow. Predators do play a role in it as well, but nutrition tends to be a really, really big piece of the puzzle on that one.